folks understand the graduate profile. Like, I hear people outside of our organization talking about the graduate profile and how they're shaping their work to help us achieve this goal. And CTE is a big part of that. And our business partners have really stepped up and come to the table with great ideas.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Leading Through Unprecedented Times. With us today, we have Lorraine Perez, the Deputy Superintendent in the Santa Ana Unified School District in Southern California. Lorraine, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you this morning, Tom.
So good to be with you. And we've done a lot of work in your district with Future Ready, connected. Your superintendent, Jerry's one of our advisors, and love the work happening in your district. So tell folks a little bit about your district, your role, your background, and then we're going to dive into some of the exciting things happening in Santa Ana.
Sure. So as Tom said, Lorraine Perez, Deputy Superintendent here in Santa Ana Unified School District, Southern California, one of the larger districts in our area. We currently serve about 42,000 students. The kind of demographic for that, we have about 77% of our students who are English learners, 85% lower socioeconomic identified students, and then 91% Latinx. So that kind of in a nutshell is our district, but there's so many complexities. It's hard when you kind of just put those labels on a district. There's so much more, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the depth of this podcast together this morning.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things that I know about your district is you'll never place a label on a particular group or a particular student and allow that to slow that group or student down. And you continue to break down barriers. The work happening there is so excited. I've seen it firsthand. I've been on campus. We at Future Ready held an event with you and absolutely loved that there. You know, one of the pieces to your work that I stand in awe of truly, and the work that you're leading, the work, Jerry's whole cabinet is leading, but your work around alignment of systems. You know, I think so many times in education, we try and change bits and pieces, but you all are really intentional of everything from the board down to the classroom having the same North Star. And I think we get in trouble in education when they don't, because we start going in all different directions. We go in different directions each and every year. And over time, people just kind of lose sight of what are we even doing? Like, what's our vision, our mission? But that is something that you all have been so in alignment on, if I can use the term, is the alignment of your curriculum, your vision, your profile, and all those pieces. It's such an honor to see firsthand, but let's dive into that a little bit. So many different facets to that. Give maybe even just some of the journey, because I'm guessing this hasn't been in existence since day one of Santa Ana Unified. So maybe kind of where that's come through, the path that you've taken, your why behind the work, and really what it looks like, especially in such a good sized district.
Definitely. So thank you for that opportunity. And I'm going to start with this work as work focused on equity. So when we think about the demographic, and I shared a little bit about that, and the reason why we do the work the way that we do, it is to ensure that students, regardless of what school they're at in our district, whether it's a fundamental school, a comprehensive school, that they are having a high level experience. And the only way to do that is to get alignment. And so this really did start with Jerry Almendarez, our superintendent, coming on board in Santa Ana Unified in January of 2020. We all know what happened just a few short months later. We went into, school closures, and I actually wasn't in the district at the time. I joined the district in September of 2020. And so there was some work that was already underway with regards to conversations with our board. And we really wanted this to be scalable and driven by the board, because this, ultimately they are the folks who have been elected to represent the district. And we are here to carry out that vision and ensure that we're providing high quality learning experiences for not only our students, but for our community. And so when I got here, they were going through a process around bringing the board together to have deep conversations about vision. Like, what is it that we want for our district? And so In 2021, we landed on 5 board priorities. And then the board really gave us the freedom to say, okay, now what does this look like? As the experts, as the educational experts, what does this look like for you? And we did a very involved process of like bringing things back to the board, having them react to what we were thinking about how this would look, and it involved many stakeholders, which could be a whole other podcast. The process for getting stakeholder involvement, we had something like 80 folks from the larger community, involved teachers, principals, business leaders, envisioning a graduate profile. And so we took our board priorities, 5 board priorities, and brought that to life in a graduate profile, which really gave alignment to everybody in the system to say, this is what we're working towards. When we have students start with us and continue through our system and graduate, this is what they can rely on. This is what families can rely on, their students being able to demonstrate. And that's a lofty, big, thing to put out there. And when you take it seriously, it's a little scary because you're like, ooh, this is what we're saying. And so then you start looking at the system and go, okay, so how do we deliver on that? Like, that sounds good. This thing out here sounds good. How do we deliver on that? So we really started getting into this reflective place and asking ourselves those deep questions about what kind of conditions do we need to create so that we can allow for this to come to fruition.
Yeah, I love that. One of the pieces that I wanted to ask you about a little bit, I know, and I believe referenced briefly there, is around some of the listening sessions you do. I know the voice truly matters, from the voice of the students, the voice of the community. Last time I was with Jerry, he was talking about he had just the night before been in some community meeting as the soup representing the district, and it's such a part of what you do. Talk about some of these listening sessions and the way you cultivate community and cultivate voice. So these aren't things that are done to your people. These are things your people are a vital part of. So talk about what that looks like in your district.
Sure. And I will start by saying we're always learning. So what we thought was, the ideal way to approach listening sessions, we learned a lot along the way. And what I will tell you, as a cabinet team and really under Jerry's leadership, we have permission to do that, to stop and go, wait a minute, we don't have this right. Like, this is not getting us what we expected, or even like what folks expected to experience out of this. So I want to start there, because a lot of times we start down a path and we're like, well, we just got to get to the end of that road. And I think it's really important for us in education, and when we're doing things that are innovative, to give ourselves permission. It helps when the boss gives the permission to, right? And the board gives permission. But we have the permission to go, wait a minute. So I want to start there, because sometimes people hear folks talk about things that have been done and you think it happens in the snap of a finger and it's all perfect. It's not. And so for us, we took what we did with the graduate profile, creating the graduate profile, the process we went through with those 80 folks, and then really a smaller group of folks who were with us all the way to the end to get the language around the graduate profile, things like students being the architect of their own learning. That's a heavy, just to even think about that. What does that mean? So we started asking those questions and went back out to the community, both staff, our district staff, our students, and our parents, to say, what does this look like? And when we're successful, what will be ways that we demonstrate that? So looking for that criteria. And so we did we did these tours, listening tours. Started with students, because when we got to the kind of end of our journey, when we were like creating this document, this one page, which we all, think the work is done. We're like, oh, we got the graduate profile done. Look, here it is. You come out with this document. Once we had that, we realized that the work really had to start. And so we took that document and teased some things out, went out to our students and said, what does this mean to you? And we immediately realized that like there was already misalignment. So if this whole message today is around alignment, we realized misalignment. We were designing something for students that did not reflect what they believe they needed in an educational system, and that was going to engage them in the educational system. So we made adjustments. And we're going to continue to make adjustments based on what we learn through implementation. So our kids gave us like an earful. Like they really, we heard students say things like, "I don't learn well when I'm sitting for 6 hours." This was a kindergarten student, and that, as an educator, you go, "Wow!" Like they students are being advocates for themselves and are do want to be the architect of their own learning. They want to have a hand in this. And so how do we create the conditions for that? We're still on that listening tour. We just yesterday I met with our partners who help us with this work. We don't do this all by ourselves. We actually have folks who come in and come alongside us as a consultant, as a partner. She and I were talking yesterday about the iteration for the 23-24 school year, and how can we take the lessons learned and what worked really well and replicate that, and what things do we need to change and adjust so we're actually getting really nice contextual information. So it is data collection, but it's actually a fun way to collect the data, and it's a very culture building way to collect the data. We've built so many really great relationships in this process. So it's been fun, and it's also been very eye opening.
Good. Well, so I love that. And you mentioned culture building. I actually, because we can, want to flash back to your boss, Dr. Jerry Almendez, from 3 years ago, just a few months into the pandemic, as he talks about you are not alone. Let's take a listen.
You're not alone. None of us really have a lot of answers, and it gets frustrating. And I get frustrated too. Almost every day, a new bit of information comes out. New guidelines come out, and then they change. But just be reflective in the fact that you're not alone. We're not alone. And we're going to get through this together, and that it is going to look different. We're going to have a new normal. And I would much rather us work together to define what that new normal is, as opposed to having it being given to us, because what works best in the culture of our district may not be what works best in a neighboring district. So just hang in there, work together. You're not alone. Reach out to your colleagues, ask them what they're doing. Let's get the best ideas, and then let's share them, and let's make decisions that are best for us.
So that was 3 years ago. Hard to believe. In some senses, it feels like yesterday. In some senses, it feels like 20 years ago, right? With all the things happening in our world. But you mentioned culture building. Jerry talks about you are not alone. And it's just such one of the things that I absolutely love about the leaders in your district is they get people, the human side of it, right? And one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing when I was out there firsthand, and one of the things I really wanted to dive into here is you are so into working with students to prepare them for life and the world of work. And one of the ways that you're doing that is very complementary to our work in emerging practices here at Future Ready Schools, and that's through some of your CTE pathways. So give a highlight, shine a spotlight on some of the things happening there, just the development of that program, some of the things you're looking at or even considering. So what's that look like in Santa Ana?
So in Santa Ana, we've had CTE pathways and programs for quite a while, and really robust. When I arrived in the district and got to see and learn and get a sense for all of the different pathways and the thoughtfulness and the depth with which we're doing things, I was very impressed, and I continue to be. I think the piece that sets us apart is really listening to the students. So things have changed as a result of the listening, not only for us as SAUSD, but our partners. So we have folks like High School Inc. We have community partners, Chamber of Commerce. We engage with these folks who are active in our Santa Ana and Orange County community. They also have the opportunity to listen to our students and learn from them and be informed by them. So the creation of things like internships is really where we're putting a lot of our energy to say, okay, that's great. Our students are taking the graduate profile, because again, we're working towards them demonstrating these skills. What does that look like? And it's not just about once they graduate, but really preparing them for the future. And part of that is helping to build the social capital that students in our district in particular might not have access to folks who are in, finance, field so readily, or in the entertainment industry, background, um, with directing and writing and all of those things so readily. How do we build those connections? And we are really using the graduate profile as an anchor to do that work and pull people in. Our higher ed, teams as well. So we have a partnership and a meeting with all of the higher eds in our area. Folks understand the graduate profile. Like, I hear people outside of our organization talking about the graduate profile and how they're shaping their work to help us achieve this goal. And CTE is a big part of that. And our business partners have really stepped up and come to the table with great ideas, around the pathways we have. Our culinary pathway has really taken off. Our gaming pathway, I would say, rivals some of the local universities. Like, our kids have a great opportunity and access to um, really high level, entry point into these pathways. It's very
Yeah, and
exciting.
the excitement is there. I walked into one of the gaming rooms and the excitement on people's faces, I was completely blown away. Looked like I was beyond a college campus in some sort of maybe north of you in Hollywood where I was, but the learning that was happening, the teamwork that was happening, just so, so, so exciting. You're talking really about one of our future ready gears, and that's around community partnerships. Just truly one of the areas that I see you all be so intentional. And I think one of my main takeaways from listening to you and knowing just the work that happens there is you all are so intentional with the connections, with going back to the alignment in the first conversation that we had, to all those different pieces. Let me ask you, maybe I'm a school or district leader that's listening to this thinking like, okay, as those changes, as those alignments happen, we don't make change without having some sort of resistance. Maybe it's from the community, maybe it's from teachers, whatever it might be. But as we make those types of changes, helping support our teachers so that they can, it's been said that the only people that like change are wet babies, right? Like, we've all heard that before. And so, teachers are comfortable with what they know, best people on the planet. And when I was a teacher, I was comfortable with how I knew how to do it. But when we get a new plan in place, that new profile in place, and I want to start shifting some practices, what are you all doing to support teachers? What is that professional learning? Another one of our gears of our framework. What does that look like in Santa Ana? So how are you supporting teachers to be able to make some of these changes to better the students?
Yeah. So I think their involvement on the front end, and again, I said we haven't done everything exactly right the first time out of the gate. We heard from our teachers in our first listening session, and that resulted in us coming back and doing some deeper, having some deeper conversations and more listening around what they need, because teachers show up and they want for themselves to be successful as a teacher, and they want their students to be successful. So it really was, and is, about what do they need to be successful in realizing that graduate profile and changing practice. So that, I think, was, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions about what teachers know and what they don't know, and what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do or able to do. um, and so that is what we really took a hard pause and are still doing that listening, to be honest with you. And so meeting folks where they are, really, meeting them where they are. It's going to look different at different levels. Our elementary teachers are asking, okay, how do what is my role? And so out of that have come our, I shouldn't say have come, because we're working on them now, but are coming grade level, kind of expectations, progressions towards the graduate profile, so that a teacher knows, yeah, you're not going to be in third grade, a third grade teacher, and doing these things that are like up here with regards to the graduate profile, but here's what you are and we want you to do to lay the foundation, so that the student may be able and will be able to do those things that we expect when they're 10th, 11th, 12th graders. So I think helping folks see that they're part of this bigger picture, and imagine how motivating that is as a teacher when you realize that, yeah, we know we're in there and we're teaching, and when you see a child learn how to read or gain a skill, but then when you realize how this actually plays into a much bigger picture, Like that is motivating. And so capturing that and helping folks connect with that why becomes very, very important. And I think, specifically to your question, what are we doing? We are listening, and then we are matching that with professional development. And this is an idea that I have been floating and talking with folks about. So I'm going to put it out there, is really around these externships for teachers. Not that a teacher is going to go get a whole separate job, but how do we build opportunities for teachers to get exposure to a field? So if they happen to work in a school that is, they might not even be at the high school, they might be at an intermediate, but they know that the school that their students feed into has a pathway that is a medical pathway. Are they thinking about the vocabulary and the concepts that they could be tapping into that will prepare students for deeper success when they get into high school and have that particular, or choose to go through that particular pathway? So we need to really blow the walls off of our thinking in the classroom, and have people think differently. And I have seen this be done in another place, and so I was asking those questions, and so we're talking about it, and it's something that I want for us to offer. And again, we don't know what individual teachers or collectively teachers are going to be willing or have an interest in doing. So let's give that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, how in the world can we as school and district leaders talk about personalizing for kids if we're not in turn doing it for our teachers and modeling to them what it can and what it should be? The other thing that I was thinking a lot about as you were talking about is those listening sessions with teachers, but then you quickly shifted to how intentional you were going to be, then actually implementing and meeting them where they are. I think one of the things that we can be guilty of if we're not careful as districts is we put out that survey after a professional learning day, we get all the information back, nobody ever hears anything, nothing ever changes, and then we wonder why people stop filling out the survey, right? And so to show people, we heard you, we see your need, here's what you said, so this is what we're doing, also gives them that truly authentic voice, which I think is so important. So Lorraine, if people want to follow some of this work or follow you professionally, where can they connect?
So they can find me on Twitter. They can always reach me, really, like if they are interested in coming to visit or having a one-on-one conversation, you can reach me at my email, Lorraine, LORRAINE .Perez, PEREZ at sausd.us. And my Twitter is at Dr. Lorraine Perez.
Absolutely love that. Thank you for that. So let me wrap up with this piece. You've got a wide variety, thousands of school and district leaders listening to your input, listening to your thoughts. No pressure there, by the way. No matter where they are on any sort of continuum, implementing some of this stuff, or maybe they've been doing it for a real long time. What's one piece of advice, speak to their hearts if you would, that you have for them moving forward?
So the work that we do is really, really tough work. So the team that you have is extremely important. So build the team, nurture the team, and slow down enough to actually look at what you've accomplished. So even Tom, with what you said and earlier, and we kind of did a look back at Jerry's comments around culture. I had somebody slow me down a couple of weeks ago and say, look what we've done in this year. And it blew my mind. And this is not about me, it's about the team. But it blew my mind. I'm like, wow. So set the goals, set them high, and take the time to look, over the course of a year or the course of 2 years, because we know the change doesn't, happen lickety split overnight. But take that time, because we're doing transformational work. We just don't see the transformation from one day to the next.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Lorraine Perez, Deputy Superintendent in Santa Ana Unified in Southern California. Lorraine, my friend, it's so good to see you again today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.